Hey everyone, we're working hard to get our first 1,000 subscribers, sign up and you won't regret it. I didn't propose because of pressure. I proposed because I was tired of living in almost. For 3 years, my life with Sloane had been a string of soft promises. We didn't fight much. We didn't scream. We didn't throw things. We were the kind of couple people pointed at and said, "You two make sense." The problem was, making sense isn't the same as being chosen. Sloane was the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make it feel like the lights got brighter. Not because she tried. Because she didn't have to. She worked in marketing for a regional sports brand, the kind of job that turned your weekends into networking events and your dinners into quick drinks with the team. I worked in commercial HVAC sales. I wore polos. She wore outfits that looked effortless but probably cost my car payment. I loved her anyway. Maybe I loved her more because of that gap. I didn't want to be the guy waiting on the bench for a woman who liked the attention of having him there. So I planned it right. Not over the top. Just right. A Saturday in early spring. A little rented cabin 2 hours outside Denver. No crowds, no audience, no pressure. The kind of place where the air smells like pine and the quiet makes you feel like you're finally alone with yourself. I'd been carrying the ring in a small black box that felt heavier than it should have. Every time my fingers brushed it in my pocket, my heart did that stupid thing where it thinks it's brave. Sloane had been in a good mood the whole drive. Singing along to playlists, snapping photos out the window, teasing me about my old man music whenever I played something with guitars. At the cabin, she walked around like she already owned the place, tossing her bag onto the bed and opening windows like she was letting in a new life. That night we ate takeout off paper plates because the cabin had a kitchen that looked like it had never actually been used. We drank wine. We laughed. She put her feet in my lap and scrolled on her phone, showing me random videos, the kind you laugh at because the person you love is laughing. It felt like the moment. So after dinner, I asked if she wanted to take a walk. She did. The sky was a deep purple when we got to the little overlook behind the cabin. No dramatic mountain peaks, nothing you'd see on a postcard. Just tall trees and a quiet horizon and a little patch of open space where you could hear your own breathing. I turned to her. My palms were sweating so hard I could feel it in my wrists. I started saying the speech I'd practiced in my head, how she made my life better, how I didn't want to keep calling her my girlfriend, like we were still in college, how I was ready. I didn't even get through half of it. I took a breath, dropped down on one knee, opened the box. And Sloane laughed. Not nervous laughter. Not surprised laughter. A sharp, bright burst like I'd just told the funniest joke. Her mouth opened in a grin and she actually leaned back a little, like the sight of me kneeling was a visual punchline. Then she said, loud and clear. Never. One word. Clean. Final. The night didn't feel purple anymore. It felt black. I remember the sound of the wind in the trees. I remember how the ring looked too small in that box, like a mistake someone had packaged neatly. I didn't stand up right away because my brain couldn't catch up with my body. Sloane stopped laughing when she saw my face, but she didn't apologize. She didn't rush forward. She didn't even reach for my hand. She just exhaled like I'd inconvenienced her. "Why would you do that?" she said. "In public." We weren't in public. There was no one. But that's what she thought it was, an ambush. I started. My throat felt like it had gravel in it. She crossed her arms, looking past me at the trees like she needed them to rescue her. "I'm not marrying you. Not, I'm not ready. Not, I need time. Not even, I love you but. Just, I'm not marrying you." Then she did something worse. She smiled, small, almost pitying, and said, "You're great. You're safe. But I'm not doing that." Safe. The word landed like a label slapped onto my forehead. I closed the box. My fingers were shaking so hard I fumbled it. I stood up slowly, like an old man. I wanted to say something sharp. Something that made her regret it. But what came out was, okay. And then I walked back to the cabin with her behind me, the distance between us stretching with every step. Inside, she acted like we just had a weird moment. She opened another bottle of wine. She sat on the bed and started talking about brunch places in Denver. Like the proposal had been a scene from a show she didn't like, and she'd changed the channel. I stayed quiet. Around midnight, she went into the bathroom, and I heard her on the phone. Not whispering the way someone whispers when they know they're doing something wrong. Just, casual. Light. I caught a few words through the thin cabin walls. Something about, he did it, and I told him no, and then. I swear, I almost died. She laughed again. That same bright laugh. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the carpet, feeling my chest fill with something hot and humiliating. When she came out, she didn't look guilty. She looked entertained. And that's when my brain finally asked the question my heart had been too loyal to ask. Who did she just call to laugh about me? I waited until she fell asleep, then I picked up her phone from the nightstand. I didn't need to snoop long. The last message thread at the top wasn't a girlfriend. It wasn't her sister. It was a guy saved as A. And the preview said, "Told you he'd do it. You owe me $200. My hands went cold. Because suddenly, that never didn't feel like rejection. It felt like a bet she'd already won. I didn't open the thread right away. I just stared at that preview line, like if I stared long enough it would turn into something innocent. A coworker joke. A fantasy football thing. Anything that didn't involve my life being entertainment. But the cabin was quiet, Sloane was asleep, and the ring box was sitting in my bag like evidence. So I opened it. The thread was short, like they'd moved the real conversation somewhere else, but it was enough. A had sent a message earlier that day. "Tonight?" Sloane replied. "Yep. Watch." Then, a few hours later. "He did it LMAO. And A replied. "Pay up. Told you." Sloane. "Never again. I hate this." A. "You don't hate it. You love the attention." And then, the line that made my stomach flip, "You keeping him or cutting him?" Sloane's response was a single word. "Keeping. Keeping." Like I was a coat on a hook. My first impulse was rage. Pure, shaking rage. The kind that makes you want to throw a phone through a window and scream in the woods until your voice breaks. My second impulse was worse. Shame. Because some part of me had always suspected I loved her more than she loved me. I just never thought she'd turn it into a game. I put her phone back exactly where it was, like I was handling a bomb that might explode if it moved. Then I sat there until sunrise. When she woke up, she acted normal. She stretched, yawned, kissed my shoulder like nothing had happened. Like my kneeling on the ground begging for a future hadn't become a punchline. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I watched. I watched the way she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I watched the way she smiled at a message and then quickly wiped the smile away when I walked into the room. On the drive back to Denver, she kept talking, filling the space so I wouldn't. I nodded when I needed to. I said, "Yeah," and like a man practicing how to disappear. When we got back, she went straight into busy mode. Calls, meetings, emails. She said she had to attend a brand dinner that week and asked if I was okay staying in. I said I was fine. That night, after she fell asleep, I did something I'd never done in my life. I checked our shared iPad. It was synced to her calendar. I found the brand dinner. But I also found a recurring appointment that wasn't labeled like work. Every Thursday. Same time. 2 hours blocked off. The title was just a single letter. A. My chest tightened. I'd been dating her for 3 years, and I didn't know she had a standing 2-hour appointment with a guy saved as A. I didn't know his name. But I knew one thing, he wasn't a coworker. Because I'd met her coworkers. I'd been to their happy hours, their holiday parties, their apartment warmings. No one was A. Over the next few weeks, I started collecting little pieces. Not because I wanted to be a detective. Because the truth was leaking into my life no matter what I did. Receipts on her email for drinks at places she never mentioned. A hotel charge that she explained as work reimburses it later. A new perfume that she didn't wear around me. And the worst part? She wasn't even careful. Not because she was confident. Because she didn't think I'd look. Because safe men don't look. Then came the moment that made me stop pretending I could still fix this. It was a Tuesday. She came home late, smelling like that new perfume, eyes glittering like she'd just been somewhere she didn't want to admit. She crawled into bed and said, sleepy and sweet, "You're the only steady thing in my life." Then she fell asleep with her hand on my chest. And I stared at the ceiling thinking, steady thing. Not love. Not partner. Not future. Just steady. Like a paycheck. Like a routine. Like a backup plan. The next day, I took a personal day and drove to the address listed under the hotel charge. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even know what I hoped to see. I just needed proof that wasn't inside my own head. I parked across the street and waited. An hour passed. Then I saw her. Not alone. She walked out of the lobby laughing, her hair down, her body language loose in a way she wasn't with me anymore. Next to her was a man in a fitted jacket, tall, confident, moving like he belonged in a commercial. He opened her car door like it was nothing. Like it was routine. Before she got in, she stood on her toes and kissed him. Not a polite kiss. Not a quick one. A kiss that looked like ownership. Then she got in and they drove away. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. And I realized something that hit me like a slap. She wasn't rejecting marriage. She was rejecting marriage with me. And she was doing it while letting me pay half the rent and call her my future. When I got home, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop and started looking up the hotel reservation details from her email. The booking was under her name. But the second guest? It was listed under a full name. I read it 3 times to make sure. Because I recognized it. I'd seen it on TV commercials. On billboards. On a campaign she'd bragged about working on. The man she'd just kissed wasn't a secret boyfriend. He was her boss. Adrian Cross. The face of the company. The guy everyone called the genius behind the brand. And that meant I wasn't just dating a woman who didn't respect me. I was standing in the shadow of something bigger. Something that had money, power, and people who knew how to bury mistakes. My phone buzzed. A text from Sloane. "Hey babe, can we talk tonight?" Like, seriously talk. I stared at it. Because suddenly I knew what seriously meant. She wasn't going to confess. She was going to manage me. And I was done being managed. I didn't confront Sloane that night. Instead, I did something I'm still proud of. I went quiet. Not passive quiet. Not defeated quiet. Strategic quiet. I started moving my life out of hers without her noticing. Canceling joint subscriptions. Separating finances. Taking my name off things. Talking to my landlord privately about my options. It wasn't dramatic. It was clean. Because I didn't want a fight. I wanted an exit that couldn't be manipulated. Sloane tried to pull me back in with serious talks. She brought up marriage in a way that felt like a business pitch. She said things like, "We've been together long enough, and it makes sense, and we should think long term." It would have been funny if it didn't make me sick. I remember looking at her across our kitchen island, listening to her talk about commitment like she'd just discovered it, and thinking, she's not choosing me now because she loves me. She's choosing me now because she's afraid of losing her safety net. Because the truth was starting to show itself in small cracks. Her boss, Adrian Cross, started appearing in articles for reasons that weren't flattering. Rumors about a lawsuit. A former employee speaking out. A hostile workplace claim that got quietly settled. Sloane would scroll through her phone with her jaw tight, pretending it didn't bother her. Meanwhile, she started acting like she wanted to be seen with me again. Inviting me to events. Tagging me in photos. Holding my hand in public. It was too late. And in the middle of all of that, I met Harper. Not in some cute rom-com way. At the time, my dad was recovering from a minor stroke, and I was juggling work and hospital visits and the kind of stress that makes your face look older. One afternoon, I walked into the rehab center carrying coffee and paperwork and found myself in the wrong hallway. Harper was there, helping an older man in a wheelchair navigate a tricky doorway, speaking to him gently but firmly, like she respected him enough to not baby him. She looked up when she noticed me hovering and asked, matter of fact, "You lost?" I said yes, and she pointed me the right way, then went back to what she was doing. That was it. But over the next couple of weeks, I kept seeing her. Same hallway. Same calm energy. Same clipped ponytail and practical shoes. She wasn't trying to be impressive. She just was. One day, she recognized me and asked how my dad was doing. No flirtation. No game. Just a question that meant she'd remembered. We started talking in little pockets of time. 5 minutes here. 10 minutes there. Sometimes it was just about rehab schedules and how hospitals always smell like disinfectant and stale coffee. Then it became about life. Harper was a physical therapist. Divorced. No kids. She laughed in a way that didn't feel performative. She had opinions that didn't bend to impress you. The first time she smiled at me like she actually saw me, something in my chest loosened. And I hated myself for how much I noticed it. Because I was still living with Sloane. Still playing the role. Still safe. Then came the night Sloane finally showed her hand. We were at a work event of hers, some glossy brand showcase with neon lights and catered drinks. She insisted I come. She wanted photos. She wanted us. Adrian Cross was there. He walked through the crowd like a man used to people parting for him. When he saw Sloane, his face did something subtle, tightened, then smoothed. He looked at me like I was furniture. Sloane gripped my arm harder than usual. Possessive. Adrian leaned in and spoke to her quietly, his smile still on. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see her expression shift. She was listening like she was being warned. Later, when we got home, she slammed her purse down and said, "We need to get engaged." Not, "we should." Not, "I want to." Need. I stared at her. Why? She hesitated, then tried to spin it. Something about stability. About image. About the future. And then she said the line that sealed everything. "It'll shut people up." People. Not me. Not us. People. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat on the couch and looked at the ring box I'd hidden away a year earlier. I didn't feel heartbreak anymore. I felt clarity. Within a week, I moved out. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I didn't beg. I told her it was over. She cried the kind of tears that happen when a plan falls apart, not when love dies. She texted me for days after, switching between anger and sweetness, trying every tactic she could. Then she got mean. She said I'd regret it. That I was throwing away the best thing I'd ever have. That I was too old-fashioned, too boring, too safe. I didn't respond. I focused on my dad. On work. On rebuilding. And slowly, without forcing it, Harper became part of my life. We started getting coffee after rehab appointments. Then dinner. Then weekends where we didn't do anything special, and it still felt like peace. Harper didn't ask me to perform. She didn't treat commitment like a strategy. When she looked at me, I didn't feel like a backup plan. 6 months later, I realized I loved her. Not the desperate love that tries to earn its place. The steady love that feels like coming home. A year after Sloane laughed at my proposal, I took Harper to a quiet spot near a lake outside Denver. No cabin. No Pinterest moment. Just water and wind and honesty. I proposed. Harper didn't laugh. She didn't hesitate. She covered her mouth with her hand, eyes glassy, and nodded so hard it looked like relief. Yes, she said. Yes. I stood up and hugged her, and for the first time in a long time, my chest didn't feel tight. It felt open. We posted a simple engagement photo later that night. Nothing flashy. Just her hand, the ring, the lake behind us. Within minutes, my phone buzzed. A number I hadn't seen in months. Sloane. One message. Tell me this is a joke. I stared at it, then set my phone down. Because Sloane's opinion didn't matter anymore. Until the next morning, when Harper showed me something on her phone that made my blood run cold. A message request. From a fake account. No profile picture. Just one line. Congrats. Ask him what happened at the cabin. Harper showed me the message while we were still in bed. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Do you know what this is? She asked. I took her phone and read it again. Congrats. Ask him what happened at the cabin. A fake account. No followers. No posts. The kind of account people use when they want to throw a grenade and disappear. My first thought was Sloane. My second thought was worse, Adrian. Because the timing wasn't random. The engagement photo had been up for less than 12 hours. Someone had been watching. I told Harper everything. Not just the she said never part. All of it. The bet. The hotel. Adrian Cross. The way Sloane tried to force an engagement when her image started cracking. Harper listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, okay. So what happened at the cabin? And for a second, I didn't know what to say. Because in my mind, the cabin was the proposal and the humiliation and the text thread. But then a memory surfaced, something I dismissed at the time because I was too busy being crushed. The phone call. Sloane laughing in the bathroom. He did it. I almost died. Back then, I'd assumed she was laughing at me with her lover. But what if it was more than that? What if the cabin wasn't just a breakup story? What if it was where something else happened, something someone wanted me to forget? That day, I did something I should have done a year earlier. I pulled my old phone out of a drawer and scrolled back to that weekend. Photos. Location tags. Receipts. Messages. Then I found something that made my stomach drop. A voicemail. From an unknown number. Timestamped the night of the proposal. I played it. At first it was muffled, like a pocket dial. Rustling. Wind. Then a man's voice, low, angry, close to the mic. You promised, he said. Then Sloane's voice, breathy, rushed. I didn't think he'd actually do it. It was supposed to be a joke. The man again, you made me look stupid. Sloane, no one saw. No one cares. Then a sound, like a slap or something hitting fabric. Sloane sucked in air. And the man said, very clearly. Fix it. The voicemail cut off. I just sat there, staring at my screen like it was a crime scene. Harper's face went pale. That's not nothing. No. It wasn't. It was proof that someone else had been there. At the cabin. That night? The next step felt unreal, like I was walking into a version of my life written by someone else. I checked my old location data. There was a second phone connected to Sloane's hotspot that weekend. A device I didn't recognize. I still had the router log screenshot because I'd once been annoyed about slow Wi-Fi and she'd blamed me. I'd screenshot it to prove it wasn't my laptop. Now that screenshot mattered. It showed the device name. Adrian_iPhone. I felt my mouth go dry. Harper didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, if he was there, and he put hands on her, and she recorded it. She didn't record it, I said, voice flat. My phone did. Accidentally. Which meant something else, too. Someone knew. Someone remembered. Maybe Sloane. Maybe Adrian. Maybe both. And now, suddenly, they were trying to poison Harper against me with a vague message, make her doubt me, make her think I'd done something wrong at that cabin. Classic misdirection. Make the decent person look guilty so the real guilty people stay hidden. I didn't want revenge at first. I wanted distance. But when someone tries to drag your fiancé into their mess, distance isn't enough. So I did the one thing Sloane and Adrian never expected me to do. I stopped being safe. I hired a lawyer. Not for a dramatic lawsuit. For protection. For documentation. For a clean, legal way to put the truth on record so it couldn't be twisted. My lawyer listened to the voicemail, studied the hotspot log screenshot, and said something simple. This is leverage. He explained what I already suspected: Adrian Cross wasn't just a guy cheating with an employee. If he'd been violent, if he'd used his power, if he'd forced her into situations, there were legal consequences. Corporate consequences. Reputation consequences. And people like Adrian didn't fear morality. They feared paper trails. We sent a formal preservation notice to the company, basically a legal warning not to destroy relevant communications, logs, and travel records. My lawyer didn't accuse them of anything yet. He didn't have to. The effect was immediate. 2 days later, Sloane called me from a number I didn't recognize. Her voice was shaky. Not angry. Not smug. Afraid. She didn't apologize. Not really. She did the thing she always did, tried to control the story. She said I was misunderstanding. That the cabin weekend was complicated. That Adrian was dangerous, and I didn't know what I was messing with. Then she said something that finally made the whole year make sense. I didn't say, never, because I didn't love you, she whispered. I said never, because he told me to. I didn't respond. She kept going, words spilling now, like a dam cracked. Adrian had been using her as more than a fling. He'd been using her as a pawn. He didn't want her married because married women made messy headlines. He didn't want her leaving because she knew too much. He kept her close and scared and dependent. And that bet? The bet wasn't a joke between lovers. It was Adrian trying to prove he could control her. That she could control me. That everyone stayed in their place. Sloane didn't confess out of guilt. She confessed because my lawyer's letter had moved the chessboard. Because now there was a risk Adrian couldn't charm his way out of. At the end of the call, she said, quietly, he's going to come after you. Or her. He'll try to ruin it. Then she hung up. Harper sat beside me, listening to the parts I'd put on speaker. When it was over, she didn't cry. She didn't spiral. She just said, okay. Then we do this right. We turned everything over to my lawyer. The fake message to Harper. The voicemail. The hotspot log. And because corporate scandals don't stay quiet when lawyers get involved, things started moving fast. Within weeks, an investigative article dropped. Not about me, about Adrian Cross. A former employee came forward. Then another. Then another. The company announced an internal review. Adrian stepped away, temporarily. Translation: they were pushing him off stage before the crowd started throwing things. Sloane disappeared from social media. Her friends stopped posting with her. Her name got quietly removed from the company's website. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean. Because the truth finally had air. And the best part? Harper didn't doubt me. She didn't let some anonymous message poison what we'd built. She looked at me, held my hand, and said, "You're not safe. You're steady. There's a difference." A month later, Harper and I went back to that same lake. Not for closure. For ownership. We stood in the cold wind, and I realized the real justice wasn't watching Sloane or Adrian fall. It was realizing they didn't get to write the ending of my story. They got one chapter. I got the rest.